Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I am so thrilled to have you here. As always, today is another day, a reminder to go, hey, clean up your room, make your space look a little bit better, or just go and do something outside that's fun, makes you feel alive, makes you feel super feminine, and just makes you feel like, you know what? I am living a life that is fun and enjoyable. And you know what, guys? I guess, as they usually say, when you bring something up to the front of your mind, you actually do solve it, or you start finding solutions for it. So, you know how I was like, I have a hard time snacking. And I really still do, and I always will. I feel like that because I am quite picky when it comes to my snacks. Well, I found new snacks that I was like, oh, I am willing to have some of this. So yesterday, I was hanging out with my sister and she got herself some Oreos. And I was like, oh, let me try some of that. And I was like, oh, these are so yummy, right? So those ones were so it was these Oreos. By the way, this is not a paid advertisement, so I'm just being honest and genuine. I actually really love this product. So I'm not being paid to advertise this. This is just my genuine opinion and that I actually did like it, right? So it was these ones, the maple cream Oreos, and I was going, oh my God, I absolutely love that, right? And so I'm like, oh, I see that you don't have too many, and so I won't have like as many as I'd like to have, so I'd like to get some of them. And then she's like, yeah, that's great. And then we sent her Boo to go and get us the Oreos, and then he goes and he's like, oh, I cannot find them. So he brought me some of this, like golden Dories, right? So he got me some golden Dories, and I was like, oh my God, I love this golden Dories, but I'm still like, I don't know. I really wanted the maple cream because that is the taste that I tried, and I was like, oh my gosh, I absolutely want more of this, right? So I'm like, I don't mind. Usually I have gotten the golden Dories and so I like them, but the maple cream was just like, oh my God, I want more of that, right? So I went, and although I had my golden Dories, I was like, let me go get myself some of that maple cream. So I went and got myself some of that maple cream, and I am absolutely loving it. But I'm also going to finish my golden Dories. Okay, I'm also going to finish my golden Dories because I'm just like, such yummy snacks. If you already have them, why not finish them, right? And so I'm like, I am obviously going to finish them. And then in terms of candy, it's like, oh, I am in the habit of eating like those strawberry candies, but then I also love these peach candies. And I was like, oh, thinking of snacking, and I'm just like, oh my God, like it comes to your mind, and then you're just like, oh, actually, I have just found a few options. So right now, I am really enjoying this peach candies. They're so yummy, they are gummies, and I don't know, I just love them. Anyways, enough about snacking. Today, I am going to wash my blanket. So I'm going to put this guy in the washer, and then I'm going to put on, like a new set on my bed because I was reading somewhere online, and someone recommended that you wash these things at least once a week. like all your bedding, because then otherwise you're like getting a lot of dirt on it. And you know, like we all think that I am super clean because I shower before I go to sleep, I shower before I go to work. But then you really should just get in the habit of washing, you know, like your bedding quite often. So that's what I'm going to do today. And I'm just going to clean up my room because honestly, my room right now is a bit messy. My closet is a bit messy. I have not done my bed yet. But then you know what? I figured that since this is a cleaning slash cooking slash, you know, like everyday life channel, why not? I can just do my intro with my room being as it is, and then I'm going to clean it up. So come along with me as I do these everyday things. But for now, I'm going to put this in the washer. I'm putting away some clothes, and I need to hang some clothes, and I need to sort out some things that I'm going to put in the laundry. This one is still smelling clean enough. I always, like when I'm trying to wash my dark sweaters, I just go, you know what, I'll wear it until I feel like the armpits do not smell that great. Because otherwise when you wash them too much, it's also not good for them. But you also don't want to go out smelling horrible. So you have to wash them quite often. Oh my God, here I go. Because there's nothing worse than smelling like dirty laundry. Actually, there is something that's worse than smelling like dirty laundry. You could smell like poop. And that maybe that is worse. I guess not maybe, for sure that is worse than smelling like dirty laundry. I'm going to color my room pink. I'm going to put some pink. It will be my duvet cover. And I love this color. I think it's, you know, like simple enough to not, I love this color. I think that it's simple enough to not take up too much space because my room already has quite a lot of things going on, as you can see with this, the closet, and some of the other things that I have. So I absolutely do not need, like, you know, I don't need things that have, like, you know, like a lot of things going on, because then, you know, like it just all clashes when put together. So I think that this is, you know, like just lovely enough but quiet enough to blend in with the rest of the things that I have going on in my room. So part of me is like, whew, I should iron this because then it will look so straight and crisp. But then I'm also like, you know what? I am not inviting a boo into this room because I live with my parents. So I'm like, I don't need my bedding to be like, you know, like lovely and crisp. It can just be okay. Although, you know what? Since, you know, like I'm trying to improve myself, maybe, maybe, you know, like, since I'm trying to improve myself, maybe that is something that I should consider just for myself, not necessarily because apparently I have a boo, right? So that's just one of those things. But yeah, here I go. And let me put this lovely little one here because I love it. And I'm like, goes quite well on there. And I'm going to have some of my yummy cookies. I'm opening the maple cream ones. Like, how yummy. What a lovely treat for myself. What a lovely treat for myself. I don't know about you, but for myself, I have been trying to, like put together a little budget. And as I have said a few times in the last other blogs, like I am doing this whole thing where I am like, like just working on being self-reliant, so not using too many of my mom's resources, and so like just not knowing the cost of things for myself, because I have honestly like recently discovered that I am just so used to like taking some of my mom's things. I'm so used to getting help from my parents, help from my siblings, so that I just don't even know how to actually or I know how to do things for myself, but what results is you can't actually say, how much do I need reasonably to live, right? Like for a whole month, like how much money do I need for me to be able to survive? And what if I didn't have my mom here? What if I didn't have my dad? What if I didn't have my siblings to be supporting me, right? So how much do I need to be making for me to be living comfortably? And one of the things that you really don't put in mind while you are living with your parents and your family is that food costs a lot of money. When you don't, like consciously work on a budget, when you don't consciously work on, like going, oh, like how much do I need to spend on my food? You end up overspending. Like for myself, I'm always like, oh, I go outside and I'm like, oh my God, this snack is looking so yummy. I'm just going to buy it. And so I'm not even thinking, and like I'm going, what if I spend too much money on food? And so what if I actually don't have enough for rent, right? Because living with my parents, I'm like, if I am short on rent, they will just go, oh, that's fine. You can pay a little bit later. But suppose that I was living with someone else, that would not be okay, right? Like I would actually have to pay, and I would have to pay on time. Otherwise, like I'd be in trouble, right? And so for myself, like just keeping that in mind lately, I'm like, oh my God, I guess when you are living with your parents, you really have to keep these things in mind so that when you move out of your parents' house, you do not get shocked and end up being one of those who, like, the end of the month shows up. And let's say, let's say that you really have done everything right, but then for some reason, your boss has made a mistake somewhere in the system, and so you're not, like, you're getting paid later than you usually are. Are you prepared, right? Like, are you prepared? Do you have any savings for you to be able to just pay your rent for that month and wait to get paid? But like you have not offset things, right? So those are the things that I'm kind of keeping in mind, because I absolutely think that, of course, that is a lovely thing. Like, I think, of course, men generally are expected to be prepared in that sense. But as a woman, I think it's even more essential for us to be prepared in that way. Because one thing, because I've always felt like the world is more forgiving towards men, at least single men, in the case of rent, right? If you don't have a family. And you're like, oh, I do not have my rent for this month. Okay, he'll just go and crash with, like one of his single friends, and maybe until he's able to apparently get paid again and he can just move that fast. I feel like the world is more forgiving towards men in that sense. But as a woman, it really is not. And it's just a really good idea to be as prepared as possible, right? And so keeping that in mind, I'm like, I'd like to prepare myself for those things. Because although I have my parents and, they do these things for me, like they forgive me if I am a little late to pay rent, I know that when I get out there, it will not be the same with other people, because they need to pay for their bills too, and I am not their child, so they won't give that special consideration because they don't really know me, right? So because if it's your child, if it's your parents, you're like, oh, I know him or I know her, so I know that I can count on her, and I know that she's not lying to me. She's just going to pay, like the rent, but a little bit later. But if it's a stranger, you're like, oh, is this woman trying to hustle me, right? And so they do not take it as easy on you, because they're just like, I have had a few renters like you, and you will not take advantage of me, right? So that is what does happen when you are dealing with someone that's not your family member. So as you're living in your parents' house, you should always keep that in mind. And so how is this related to food? I'm like, one of the things that really helps is if you know how much you need to spend on food, then like you're actually able to predict how much you will have and how much you can save, right? But if you don't know, then you're just busy out there spending money on food. You're like, oh, I went and bought myself a whole bunch of snacks. I was hungry, so I passed by McDonald's and I bought myself some food. Or I passed by, I don't know, something else. It could be a supermarket. It doesn't have to be like just McDonald's. It can just be literally anything. But then if you prepare food ahead of time, you are less likely to, end up snacking somewhere else, unless you go, I intentionally would like to snack today. And that is the feminine thing to do, to be prepared and to say, you know what, today I am going to spend $5 on a snack. And I will not end up being out of balance at the end of the month because I spent my $5 intentionally. I literally sat down and I was thinking, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to spend that $5, right? And so one thing to keep in mind is, even if you're living with your parents, just make your own meals. Make your own meals. Sometimes your siblings won't respect, your decision to do that, so they'll just be taking your meals and eating them, and you're just like, oh my God, right? Maybe that is also an opportunity for you to start communicating some boundaries, right, with your siblings, and just go, you cannot touch my food that I am, packing for myself, because I am doing this for a reason, right? So you cannot be taking my food, right? But so that is another opportunity for you to learn something else. That is establishing boundaries and communicating them and making sure that, your siblings actually follow them. I don't know, your parent will probably be happy to, let you do that, because they're probably thinking, you know what? I do not want to be worrying too much about this girl or this, guy. So it's great that she's actually working on some of these things. I am putting together some meals for myself because I like to have them prepared, because then that way I do not actually feel like I am stressing myself too much by cooking on a regular basis. And then also that way I'm also not stressing my mom by, taking some of her food, because that is throwing off her budget as well, right? So I am going to put together meals for about 2 to 3 weeks. The last time I did it, I put together meals for a whole month. But I think today, because my budget, I'm keeping my budget in mind, and I don't want to go over my limit that I have put together for food. I'm just going to make food for 2 weeks because I'm getting paid in 2 weeks anyways. So I'm like, oh, if I go and make food for a whole month, then I'll have gone over the budget that I set for this month. But if I just do for 2 weeks, then I'll still be within the budget. So I'll put together those meals and I'll show you guys what I end up with. And I hope that you will love this idea and that you guys will do it as well. But even if you don't like it, these are those things that you just go, honey, the sooner you learn this, the better, right? Because you need to start doing some of these things for yourself as you're getting older. And as a woman, honestly, try and have a life that is as stress-free as possible, right? So those are the times that you don't want to be that girl that's like, at the end of the month, I am not prepared. I am not prepared, so my life gets pulled off balance. You will already have lots of stress in your life. So the stress that you can avoid, please avoid it. Please avoid it. Okay? There you go. I am making myself a stew. So I'm making myself a stew, and this stew is supposed to last me for 2 weeks until the next time that I get paid. And so put together a new budget or a new meal. And so I'm thinking that maybe it will last even more because I am cooking it in a very, very big pot. So I'm going to add lots of water to this, and it's going to be so yummy, right? So I am putting it in this big pot, and my ingredients that I have 14 tomatoes. I have 4 chicken legs, and I also have 1.5 onion. The other half I used last time, so that is the only reason that it's not 2 onions. It's not so important that it is 1.5 onion. It can be 1 onion if you're not a huge fan of onion. I also have some garlic that I'm putting in, and I'm putting in some cilantro. So for this meal, I am honestly just putting everything together and putting it all in the pot and just boiling it. I was going to fry my onions and tomatoes and garlic, but then I have, like, I am one of those weird people who just, like sometimes I mention something and at the idea of it, I feel like throwing up. And so I felt like throwing up as soon as I thought of frying my onions and tomatoes and garlic and whatnot. So I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to boil them. I'm not going to fry them before I do the boil, right? And then I also have some veggies. It's corn, carrots, green peas, and green beans. And then I'm also putting about 10 eggs in this meal, because then that way I feel like there's more substance in there. And that will be good enough for me for a while. For the chicken, I am going to cut it into like small pieces and put it in there so that way it actually, it will actually blend in there and just seem as if there's a lot of chicken in there. But I love chicken legs and thighs, and that's why I usually buy that. I know that there's some people who love chicken breasts, and so that is what they eat in this meal. Really, chicken breast does make sense, but then I was raised on chicken thighs and like the legs, so that is what I like to have because that is what we generally have in our family. And so I guess everyone has their own thing. Today I'm not going to show you guys how I'm doing all this, but then you know what, I guess maybe a tiny little bit, but I'm just cutting all these things and just putting them together and putting them in that pot and boiling them. So maybe I'll show you a little bit, but yeah, this should be so much fun. I am so excited, but more than anything, I am thrilled to have meals for a whole 2 weeks until the next time that I get paid. I have finished cooking my stew. It's looking so yummy and it's tasting so good. I am now going to make some chapatis, and they're supposed to go with the stew. And I guess if you don't know what chapati is, you will know at the end of this video. Okay, and this stew can pretty much go with anything, but it also, it is just fine by itself, right? So it's one of those, actually it's not a stew, it's more like a soup. It's very light. So if you are looking for a light meal, this is perfect for that. I am on a diet, so I am on a weight loss. Well, I'm not exactly on a diet, but I'm eating a whole lot less, so I am expecting to lose some weight, and I am doing that intentionally. So this soup is perfect for me. Like, let's say if I have eaten a lot of food for lunch, I can just have that for dinner and not have it with like rice or chapati or like, like potatoes or anything like that. And then that's supposed to be good for like losing weight, right? And so I am going to make, so the chapati, I am going to, it's a lot of flour. It is wheat flour. And the things that I'm putting in are wheat flour, a lot of wheat flour. Putting in butter. I'm putting in butter, and I am putting in onions. So I have 1 onion, and I also have some cilantro. And then I have 10 eggs. So I have 10 eggs that I'm going to mix together, and then I'm going to put that in. For some people, they put sugar in their chapatis. I do not put sugar in my chapatis because I don't know, I just don't like the taste of sugar in my chapatis. So usually I just put the salt. But you have to either put salt or sugar, or you can put both, right? Personally, I just like to put salt because to my taste, that's much better. Usually when I'm cooking for everyone else in my family, I add sugar because one of my sister just absolutely loves the chapatis with sugar. And so when I'm keeping her in mind, I'm like, I might as well as add the sugar, although I am not a huge fan of the sugar, right? Everyone else, I don't think they all care too much, or maybe I have just not ever cared enough to ask everyone else because that one is more like closer to me, and so we have actually talked about these things together. But everyone else, I'm like, oh, I guess I just never took the time to ask them, by the way, do you guys like sugar in your chapatis or do you not? Right? So it's just one of those things. But for me, I know that I do not like sugar in there, so I won't put sugar in there. So I'm going to add the salt. And so for the cilantro, I'm going to cook it in the butter with the onion. The interesting thing is that this time I'll actually put the cilantro in before I put the onions. And the reason for that is because I don't really want to cook the onions for a long time, because I love the taste of them in the chapatis a whole lot better when I put them in without cooking them much. So the idea is to just fry the cilantro because I'd like the cilantro stalks to be a little more like tender. So I want them to be soft so that later on when I'm eating the chapati, I'm not like tasting, or I'm not chewing on the stalks and thinking, oh, that is crunchy. So I want them to be soft. I have a mixer, but for some reason I'm just so used to like using spoons or fork, and then right now while mixing this I'm just like, oh my god, why don't you just get yourself a mixer, or I don't know. But I guess it's a habit, and so I'm so used to this. That is how you know that I do not bake very often. That is how you know that I do not bake very often. So I'm like, let me just use a spoon to mix this. Let me just use a spoon to mix this. I'm not used to the routine of, like using a mixer, right? So that's something that's new for me, because I'm also going into like trying to bake a little bit more, so I'll probably get used to that. There I go. that is all done now. So guys, I was going to add like some coconut water into my chapatis, but then this has like been impossible to break. So I'm just like, you know what? I am not going to do that. It's, you know, like it's making a lot of noise, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'll just have to wait and get this done tomorrow. Oh my god, that is sounding so good. I'm like, oh my gosh, but I won't put in the effort to do that, like, you know, like today, but I wanted to put it in my chapati, but then I guess I am not. And right now I'm going to mix this because I would like to have the salt be everywhere. I'd like the salt to be everywhere rather than just concentrated in one or two spots. So this is now ready, and I'm going to put it in here, and then I'm going to mix. I feel like I have mixed this and the salt long enough for it to just be fine to now put in the butter. And I guess you must make sure to put in salt first, because then you don't want to put in butter that is melted before you put in the salt, because then it will be impossible to get the salt everywhere. And then after mixing that in, I am now going to add the eggs. And then at this point, I am going to put some warm water in here. To make sure that you knead the dough until it's, you know, like the texture is consistent everywhere that you're looking, and then at some point you can add some oil in there just to make it a little bit smoother, like, and so that a lot of it is not attaching on your hands. Kneading your dough, you need to prepare a space to be pushing the chapati on, because you want it to be flat and you want it to be round before you cook it. And this is what I'm going to be using to be pushing it, okay? So that's what I'll be using. And I love to make, I mean, I guess you can, hold on, so let me show you. So you are supposed to take about, like, you know, like a handful. So when you cover your hand, it's like, oh, this is a handful for each of the, you know, like for each of the chapatis that you're making, unless you really are into like the tiny chapatis. Otherwise, for me, I like to have my chapatis yummy, thick and rich, right? So, and with a whole bunch of texture, and I'm going to show you how to make that happen. You will need a lot of flour because you don't want your chapatis to get stuck on the counter, so you need a lot of flour for this. Different people have their own way of doing things. Now, if you want your chapatis to just look presentable, look like they have, like, you know, like a lot of complexity and, you know, like an interesting, you know, like element when people look at them, when they, you know, like when they are cutting them apart to eat them, you need to do an extra step. So you have to roll it twice. This is how the process goes. You just take the dough and you roll it. When you're doing this part of the rolling, you don't have to be very careful about the shape of it. It can just be any shape because you just need it to be rolled so that you can put some oil on it. Right now, I'm just making it look like a flat bread, really. Like, you know, like a long flat bread whose shape is, I don't know. Generally, I find that flatbreads are just like, you know, like you can turn it into a rectangle and you can cut a whole bunch of squares into it, but then, you know, like the shape of it doesn't really matter too much. And then add about, you know, like a tablespoon and a half of oil onto the chapati. Spread it everywhere. And then you're supposed to roll it. Then go squeeze, roll, and, you know, like squeeze it so that way, like, you're making sure that it actually sticks together and the oil is, like, you know, mixing in well, and then you're supposed to roll it into a circle. Or essentially it's supposed to be round, whatever you prefer. I know that some people are so, like, you know, particular about how they want things to be called, right? So they're like, I know that names are not important, but once I have given something a name, I really care for it to be called that name consistently, right? So the name, it can be any name, but once I give something a name, I really care for the name to be applied consistently, right? And so I know that some people are really particular that way. Maybe you're not, but because I'm that type of girl sometimes about some things, right? So I'm just like, oh my God, there I go. I recommend that you actually just get this process done for all of them, because then the next process is to start cooking them, and probably before you start cooking them you should try and just get this process finished so that you know, like, you are not stopping in between. Okay, so that first round is done. I am now going to do the final round of the rolling. And then at this point, you also, you know, like, should get your pan ready, because then on this round you are going to be cooking your chapatis after rolling. Yeah. And also, this is the time that you're supposed to make sure that they come out round, because then, you know, like, it's essential that the shape ends up being round, right? Otherwise, you will have chapatis that have like odd shapes. And then once you roll it, you're supposed to, you know, like, put it in the pan. Yeah. Those are yummy thick chapatis, and they're rich because of the ingredients that I've put in them. The eggs and the butter, the onions, the cilantro, all those ingredients go in and make super rich chapatis, right? But otherwise, you know, like, it just depends on how you prefer your chapatis. So guys, after you finish with the first round, now you're supposed to do the same process again, but this time you'll be adding oil, because then you want, like, the chapati does need oil for it to be a whole lot softer and for it to look better as well, because otherwise it's just going to be like looking like dowry, you know, like it has, like, some of the flour was still on the chapati, so you need to, like, you know, like, add some oil for it to look, I don't know, like cooked. Otherwise you just have like the flour showing up, and so it doesn't look very presentable. But that's what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to get another plate so that I'll be using that plate to put these ones onto this plate after I put oil on them. And I guess I'm putting about like 2 tablespoons on each side. On the bright side, this process does not take too long because you have already cooked like the chapati, and so it really is like like you're supposed to do it for a few minutes, but it really is just for the purpose of adding that oil, for the purpose of presentation, but then it also does make a difference for the taste as well. Chapatis are now ready, and I guess I'm going to serve those without soup. They are so yummy. So yummy. I have now finished cooking, and I'm now just going to enjoy my meal before I get on to the next activity. But this is so yummy. I love the soup. As I said, the soup is very light. The soup is very light. Okay guys, and so today I am also going to braid my hair. I don't know where you guys live, but I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time finding someone to do my hair, or I usually used to, right? And so I was just like, you know what, I'll just be doing my own hair, right? And so I just have gotten into the habit of doing my own hair. Usually I do like small little braids, and I do the long ones. Takes me a long time to do it, but then you know what, I have gotten used to doing it, and it's just something that comes naturally to me, so it doesn't even seem like a lot of work anymore, right? But lately I discovered doing like just big, like those huge braids. And I'm not even talking like box braids, but then I guess they can go in the category of box braids. But I am only doing 16. I'm only doing 16 of them, and so that's supposed to be very fast. And so I'm going to do my braids, and you guys can come along for that. And maybe, you know what, you can start doing your own braids as well. It is so easy but you know what? It's easy for me. I won't say for you, but you always can start and see how it goes. But that is one of the things that I'm going to do today. And so I have my hair combed out, and I'm going to section it. I'm going to do 4 on each row, and I'm doing 4 rows. So that ends up being 16. Oh my God, I'm so terrible at math. So I'm like, please don't ask me any math questions. Please don't ask me any math questions. And then someone asks me math questions, and then that person ends up being me, and I'm like, oh my God, what is 8 plus 8? I'm like, whew, I don't know. Let me think about it. What is 8 plus 8? And I'm like, oh my God, I know the answer for that. It's 16. That's how terrible I am at math, right? So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you guys are good at math, but I am not. So, thank goodness I don't have to be amazing at math to know that I'm doing 16 braids. I can just count them, right? Because that's how many I did last time. So, yeah, to do my hair, I bought like expression extensions. I bought the 1B, and they are the 60-inch ones. And so I was going, usually I put quite a lot of braids in my hair, which makes it hard for me to have like a regular ponytail. right? And so this time I'm like, although my braids are huge, I'm just going to make the hair small because it makes it easier for me to have like a little mini ponytail. And I really like that because it feels so light, it feels so good. So I love it. So that is the whole intention. I'm going to divide each of this into 8. I did my sister's hair yesterday, and I don't know, I guess I forgot that I did like, like only 2 for myself. So I did 3 for her, and I felt like those ones were too big. So I was like, you know what? For myself, although I don't remember very well the last time that I did it, like that I did my braids, whether I only used 2 or I did the 3, I'm going to use 2 because my sister's braids were too big, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to. I don't know, I want mine to be smaller. So each of this will, so each of these will be 8 braids. So 8 braids for this one and 8 braids for this one. So that makes it easier. In case you are wondering like what to do when you are deciding to braid your hair this style, and like just knowing whether you have too much hair or not, right? And so for me, like the using less is something that's new for me. So for now, I'm just going to section the braids, and then I'm also going to section my hair. I generally just try to section as much of it as possible before I even get started. Obviously, because I'm doing my own hair, like some of them will not turn out to be very straight, right? And so that's something that I'm not surprised to see. Should it happen, and it doesn't really matter anyways because I'm going to always have it up, so that should not be too much of a problem. Here I go. Actually, you know what? I can do half. So have 50%. Now I have half. Never mind. You know what? This is called just take it easy and just do it. Oh my god. Just do it. Oh, which brand says just do it? Is it Nike? I think so. I think that it's Nike that says just do it. Just do it. Oh my god. It's that easy. Just do it. I'm like, what exactly? What exactly? Just do it. Oh my god. going to have it, and I am thinking that this will probably last for about 2 weeks. I love it. I love it because it's super light, and so I didn't have too much like in compared to how much I usually have. So I love this hairstyle. I think it's a lovely protective hairstyle, and I intend on just doing this like on a regular basis because this is so practical and it's so easy to do. So yeah, this is what it looks like. That's what it looks like, and I have 16 of them. I think that next time I am going to do 14 because I feel like the sides did not really need 4. I think that I could have just done 3 on each of the sides, and that's what I'll try and do next time. But yeah, so you should try and do your hair, okay? Because I don't know, why not? Why not? I mean, the only reason you would say no is because maybe you're like, the only reason you would say no is because you're thinking that it is time consuming, and honestly it kind of is compared to someone else doing your hair, right? So that's the only reason that I would think you would go, no, I'll just go and get it done by someone else. But otherwise, if you can do it yourself, then go ahead and do it. I had to wait until like the soup that I made cooled down before I can put it in this packaging, and then I'm going to freeze it, and then I am, like when I am hungry, I'm just going to take it out of the freezer and warm it up. So let me see how many I get out of, like these whole big pots. But I'm going to package it now, and then yeah, these guys are perfectly fine in the freezer, and I find that I just am able to pick up one and just get going to work. So usually I just either make the rice, but in this case, you guys saw that I also made some chapatis. So I guess in this case, I am, I'm just going to take those, and the chapatis are a fun snack. I love to take them along with me, like where I'm going, and so when I need like a lunch or a light snack, I'm like, oh, let me just snack on this, right? Because it's also easy to carry around. So it's a fun little snack that is easy to go everywhere with, and it's also so tasty, at least to my taste buds. So yeah. Packaging the soup, and I got 14 out of this big pot, and I feel like that's quite great because like I said, it's supposed to be for 2 weeks. And if you guys remember, I also had that yummy fish that I prepared last week, and I froze some of that, so I still have some of that in the freezer as well. So that and this is totally going to last me until the next time that I get paid. And yeah, so this has been fun. Like I absolutely enjoyed putting this together. And it just makes me feel good to know that I have meals for 14 days, right? And I'm like, yay. So that's 14 days of me not stressing about meals. So that's why I recommend that you try it. Oh my god, guys, so I have enjoyed putting this vlog together, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to doing more, and I am also like just looking forward to getting out there and doing other things. But for now, we'll be doing for the most part like cooking and house maintenance, because I have quite a lot to do in that department, and I've decided that I'm going to do some of that for the rest of the house as well. I'm sure that my mother will appreciate that, so we'll be doing quite a lot of that on this channel. But until next time, I hope that you will have a lovely week, and I am looking forward to seeing you guys in the next video. If you like this video, do not forget to subscribe, and don't forget to give it a thumbs up. That means a like. Okay, bye guys.